Chair Milliken, take
All
it
right.
away.
All right, then. Good evening. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to this Monday, August 9th, virtual version of the City of Kalamazoo Planning Commission meeting. Thank you for all attending and listening in. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, and when you respond, please indicate your town and state. We'll start with Ms. Chambers.
I am present. I'm here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And Mr. Harrison.
Present, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Mr. Milliken.
Happily present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Phelps.
Present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And Pitts. Absent. Swan.
Present, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And Ms. Vyas.
Present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And
Thank
Mr.
you,
Burgess. I apologize for that.
Quite all right. Also present here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We have before us an agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
There are no changes to the agenda for tonight.
Excellent. Hearing that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Swan. Is there a second? Second by Burgess. All in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Say no. Excellent. All right. Thank you. In our packets, we received the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting from July 1, 2021. Were there any questions, comments, edits about those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the July 1, 2021 Planning Commission meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the meeting.
Second.
Motion by Burgess, second by Harrison. All in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, thank you very much. Are there any communications or announcements, Mr. Eldridge?
The only communications, or well, I should say announcement I want to make is we did include with the packet the revised agenda schedule. We approved a meeting schedule in January, and we've made a number of changes. Most of them were given the holidays or the availability of commissioners. So this is just laying out, what the meeting schedule has looked like this year, in case there's any questions about when we actually met. And as far as upcoming meetings, since Greg prompted me on this one, the City Commission has talked about whether we would return to in-person meetings, and given what's going on with COVID-19 right now and the variants, we are going to remain virtual. So we're going to plan on Zoom meetings in September and most likely October and possibly all the way into December. But we will keep everybody posted if anything changes. But at this point, we're going to remain virtual. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that update and that heads up. So, with that, we'll move into our public hearings. We have two this evening, and just a reminder of how these public hearings are working in this virtual world. We have a voicemail system set up. If you'd like to leave a comment, please call 269-226-6573. We'll be taking public comments on both of our public hearing items. You'll be prompted by a voicemail and asked which item you'd like to leave a comment on. Please choose which mailbox and then leave your message there. If you would like to leave a comment on a non-agenda item, there is also a mailbox available for that, and we will have that availability later on in the agenda, and we'll listen to those. We'll be taking comments through the duration of the meeting up until that public comment period on that agenda item. So with that, again, the phone number 269-226-6573. And we will open up public hearing PC 2021.11 at 4221 South West Edge Avenue, a request for a special use permit for an animal kennel in the CC Commercial Community District.
All right, can everybody see the screen with the slides? All right, got thumbs up there. Good, good. Well, yes, so our first public hearing tonight is regarding this property at 4221 South West Edge Avenue. It is currently a hairstyling salon. And tonight, the director of the Kazoo Cat Cafe and Rescue is here to speak about the special use permit. Abby Thompson is her name. So I will introduce her in a few minutes. But just some background on this particular property. The building itself is 1,800 square feet in area. The site has approximately 12 to 15 parking spaces. And this is something that Abby Thompson has been looking for a while. The Kazoo Cat Cafe and Rescue has been in Kalamazoo on West Michigan Avenue, actually, at 1128 West Michigan Avenue, next to the Jimmy John's sub shop near campus. That would be West Michigan and Eldred over there for those that are maybe familiar with that area near campus, north of Stadium Drive. But that particular site, I don't have the exact square footage, but it looks like the whole building is roughly 2,200 square feet. So I think that the tenant space that this organization is occupying there is roughly 1,000 square feet. And then that entire site only has 18 to 19 parking spaces for both tenants. So I can see why the Kazoo Cat Cafe and Rescue is looking at this particular site as far as the visibility of the street frontage on West Edge and ample parking. So this is definitely something that that would fit this use. So here's a picture of the building. You can see there is parking in front, and there's also a parking area around the back where the dumpster is located, with adequate signage along West Edge Avenue. Looking to the south, you can see the other converted homes that are all commercial businesses at this point in time. And then to the north, the same. There's several, there's one more single-story structure and then a larger structure before you get to Evelyn Street that's been converted to commercial. But this stretch is it's pretty uniform, and there's sizable parking lots for each one of these commercial buildings. Looking to the east towards the residence on Evelyn, this is what the backdrop looks like off the back of the parking lot. So there's substantial screening before you get to a chain link fence. And then if we forward here to the zoning, so you can see that the east side of West Edge Avenue is all in that CC Commercial Community Zone District, going north of Evelyn Avenue and extending south. And then as you get one parcel off of West Edge, it transitions to RM15 residential, multifamily residential, but most of that is just single family development back there. So I wanted to make note of that. And as far as the future land use map goes, again, very straightforward: commercial along West Edge Avenue, remaining residential once you get past that one parcel depth coming off of West Edge on the east side. And this is, this type of use that's proposed, definitely does align with, the variety of commercial uses that would be allowed in this general commercial zone district of the future land use map, which has retail, business, services, establishments. And as far as, animal related services, because I mentioned that in the staff report. So the CC zone district, as well as what's shown here on the future land use map, this commercial designation would both support things like pet stores, pet grooming, veterinarian clinic. It's just that when we get into, anything that deals with overnight stays of animals, then we're into that classification of animal kennel. And that's what triggers the special use permit. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that there are other businesses that are pet or animal oriented that would be permitted by right on this property. And then looking at the strategic vision goals for the city of Kalamazoo, the economic vitality goal is definitely touched on. This is a business that started in Kalamazoo, and now they're looking to expand and stay within the city of Kalamazoo. So that is nice to see. On the public engagement side, this particular notice was sent out in July for this meeting, July 23rd, and we received a few correspondences. There was 2 letters of support, or emails of support rather, that were forwarded with the agenda packet. And then there was 1 additional email received, which expressed some opposition related to concerns over parking and snow plowing. And that was included with the supplemental information that was emailed out this evening. In addition to that, Ms. Thompson conducted her own outreach with some letters to the neighbors explaining the special use permit. And so just getting into the review criteria, I'll put up the staff rationale here, but just touching on the review criteria, the 5 items out of the ordinance, which talks about, is the special use appropriate for the proposed, location? Is it compatible? Staff has looked at this and feels that because of the indoor nature of the business activity with the cafe, as well as the kenneling of the cats, there's no outdoor business activity. So that's very favorable for a commercial zone. There isn't concern of noise. The prior location on West Michigan Avenue, we received no complaints about parking issues, about odor. So that's very positive. There isn't any special requirements under the ordinance for a animal kennel, other than in the commercial zones, it has to have a special use permit. As far as this particular building goes, there's very few alterations that need to be made to bring it, bring it around to fit this current use that's proposed. And one thing that Ms. Thompson mentioned to me was that, that because it is classified as an animal shelter, it is subject to the guidelines of the Michigan Department of Agriculture. So not only does this have to fall under the city zoning and get a special use permit, but she operates with a license from the Michigan Department of Agriculture also, which also brings on periodic inspections. Road capacity, access for emergency vehicles, ingress, egress drives, all those are covered. They're pre-existing. And the one other thing that will come up is that this is a change in use. So as you look at this, you may have driven by the site and thought, well, it could use a little more landscaping, or why does the dumpster have a screening fence around it? It will be going through site plan review because technically this is a change in use of the property. So staff's recommendation is to approve this special use permit. And I will stop sharing and see if there's any questions for staff.
Thank you, Pete. Mr. Burgess.
Yes, Peter, I understand that the applicant says they have no intention of having any other animals other than cats. But if we were to grant the special use permit, would they then be allowed to add dogs if they chose to at a later date?
They would have to come back to the planning commission and ask for another special use permit.
Great.
Because that'd be outside the bounds of what you're discussing and approving tonight. And if you want me to introduce Abby Thompson right now, I can do that. But if you have any specific questions for me first, I'll take those and then I'll turn it over to Abby.
Let's see if there's any other specific questions for staff. That was a great question, David. Any other specific questions for staff at this moment? I have one. I just want to clarify, Pete, because you said not to call you out on this, but you said you contradicted yourself a little bit in your presentation. Can you clarify, is this use going for site plan review or not going for site plan review?
Yeah, I must have stumbled over that. It is required to go through site plan review.
Okay.
Because it is a change in use.
Okay. Excellent. All right, great. Any other questions for staff at this moment? All right, well then, Ms. Thompson, if you'd like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your proposal, have at it.
All right, am I unmuted? Can people hear me? Okay. Yeah, so basically, if you're not familiar, KZoo Cat Cafe and Rescue was opened in 2017 in our current location. Actually, in July, we just had our 4th birthday. And kind of what we've been looking for is a new space for a few reasons. We very quickly outgrew our first and current location, which I think is a good problem to have. We just did our 781st adoption yesterday, I believe, and in 4 years. So I feel like that's, I didn't really know what to expect, but the community support has been amazing. Before COVID, we did like events and different things at the cafe. We had like painting nights, game nights, like people, if you're not familiar, I should back up. You can come visit with the cats at the cafe. There's an entrance fee, and then we have just like a really big fancy Keurig. So I kind of tell people like we're not really a cafe, we're more of a rescue with a big Keurig and prepackaged snacks. So it's real. I mean, the cafe bit is a little misleading, but all the cat cafes, they're popping up all over the US. I believe it started overseas, and the cat cafes that are popping up in the US are more of the adoption focus, like actual rescues, but some are, full service cafes and things like that. But we went this route. So I always kind of joke, we're actually a rescue with a Keurig, but people can come in and have a cup of coffee, or, we have a little mini fridge with soda and stuff like that too. Everything's kind of, what do you call it? So like self-serve if you want it, and come visit with the cats, either to meet one to adopt, which is kind of one side of the operation, or just to hang out, because some people, someone in the family is allergic, so they can't adopt a cat or an animal, but they still really like them, or the kids like playing with them. We get a lot of families in, we got a lot of like students in, people that just like enjoy spending time with animals. We like to think it's a win-win, because the animals, the cats that we have, PS, we would never bring dogs in. That would be crazy. We would not want to do that. So they can get familiar with being around humans if they've never been around humans before. We don't take in cats at the cafe. They all come from foster homes, so we know their temperament. We have like bios of all the kitties so that people can come in and meet them, potentially to adopt, but no pressure. So we get a good mix, I think, of both, people that just want to hang out, and It's good for humans and it's good for the cats. We like to think it's a very like calm environment, again, for both the humans and the cats. And, I would say we've been pretty successful with doing the adoptions as well. And like I said, just all the community support, we did a Kickstarter initially to actually fund opening the cafe. And just through the years, whether that's people adopting or attending events or donating, we do a lot of fundraising for the cats. We are able to a lot of times take on some cases that maybe other rescues can't. Like we tend to want to jump in if there's an emergency and things like that. A lot of people contact us about cats that they find. So we've built up kind of a really good network on the rescue side as well, just being able to help with things like spaying and neutering in the community, and education, just educating people about just different services, and just taking care of their animals, and things like that. So it's been really great, and I think successful these first 4 years. And coming back around, we've outgrown our current space, and we currently lease the space that we're in. So we are looking for our forever home for the Cat Cafe. And one of the main reasons that we like this space a lot is that we don't have to do a lot of major changes. We don't have to do a lot of, like gutting anything or doing anything major to the space in order to operate our operation. So for example, in our current space, we added like a double door so that you go in the first door, there's like a little entryway, and then you go into the second door, which is where the cats are, so that they don't run out. So using that example, in this space, there's already like a front area where we wouldn't have to make any big major changes to make sure that the cats stay inside and stay safe. And it's kind of set up in a way that, again, we wouldn't have to make any major changes to the inside or the outside of the building. It would be cosmetic things, have a couple of cat trees, things like that, set up the coffee station. So with the special use permit, and all the paperwork and such, we kind of, focused on that we're not making any major changes. We, like Peter mentioned, we don't have the noise. We're not a typical kennel, what you would think of with dogs. The cats don't go outside. They don't make noise. We work really hard. We have a lot of awesome volunteers that come in and help us, scoop litter boxes and fill the food bowls and all of that super fun stuff. And we do follow all of the, not only the local codes and ordinances, but the Michigan Department of Agriculture as well. We have been a licensed shelter since we opened, and we do have to follow the guidelines in terms of the sanitation, the care, the husbandry of the animals, and they do yearly inspections currently. So I think that's kind of my overview of everything. I guess if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant at this time? Yes, Ms. Phelps.
Hi, Abby. Thanks for giving us a little more information on your business. I am just curious, moving from such a walkable, dense, kind of campus-y area, are you worried about a decrease in traffic into your shop? What do you think the impact of the relocation will be on your business, I guess?
Yeah, that's something that the board talked about. We are actually a nonprofit, so we do operate with a board of directors, and we had thought about that initially, like, oh, we're so close to campus. It's really nice because, like I said, we get a lot of families and students that come in. We used to have homework nights, but nobody ever did any homework. So that was a big thing for us. But what we realized is even though being so close to campus, people still drove to the cafe. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but the majority. And with the location where we are now, it's actually super hard for people to find us because we're behind the Jimmy John's, and it's kind of that, I don't know if it's a frontage road or whatever, like off of Stadium. And so I think if anything, people are still going to drive to get there. And with COVID, we've actually been operating by appointment. So like you have to be coming to the Cat Cafe to come to the Cat Cafe. So like foot traffic and that kind of thing wasn't something we were super concerned about in the past for that reason. And then even more so now because we're doing appointments. And I think with the more visible location too, and being able to be easier to find, I don't think that will impact, you know, the business in terms of that. I think if anything, it'll actually increase it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? All right, seeing none, we will open the public hearing. Do we have any messages that were left for this agenda item?
No messages at this time.
All right, no messages. We did receive, as Pete indicated earlier, some correspondence that was in our packets and that was emailed to us, which we've all reviewed. So that is part of the record. Having received no other comments, I will close the public hearing. Are there any other clarifying questions for staff or the applicant at this time? One I will ask of staff, the reason I was clarifying about site plan review, the site currently, none of the parking spots are aligned and there's no ADA parking. Is that something that'll be addressed during that site plan review process as it proceeds through?
Most definitely. That makes it hard to count parking spaces too. So I came up with the 12 to 15.
That was the tip. So, okay. Thank you. Good. I appreciate that. Any other clarifying questions? All right, seeing none, then we'll need a motion to kick off discussion. Can I get a motion to approve PC 2021.11? So we'd be approving the request for a special use permit at 4221 South West Edge Avenue for a animal kennel in the CC Commercial Community District. Commercial Community District.
So moved.
Motion by Phelps. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Swan. Thank you. All right, so it's open for discussion. Anyone like to start the discussion? Yes. Right.
I think that this is a great concept. I'm glad to see that this business has stuck around for so long. I remember it was one of the first things when I moved to Kalamazoo that I actually found about the city somehow, and I thought it was really unique. And I'm glad to see that Kalamazoo businesses that are born and raised here want to stick around and stay and continue to contribute to this great place that we all love. So I'm glad that Abby's taken the time to go through this process, and I think we should reward her and her board for their efforts and for their commitment to Kalamazoo by granting this permit.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments for discussion? Yes, Sade. Oh, your hand next.
Yes. I would also just piggyback off Mariah. I remember when this business first opened, I thought that it was a great idea, but I knew you guys were eventually going to outgrow that space. And it's awesome to see that you're outgrowing that space, which is good. And I feel like going on Westnedge too will also help connect you with families because there's schools over there. Kids will see it, want to be interested in coming to see it. You might even get more volunteers just from even being on that side of town. And I think that it'll be good. I am in full support and I can't wait to see you guys grow.
Excellent. Any other comments, discussion? Dave? Hey, you're muted. Sorry.
Thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
I just add that as we review the requirements of the ordinance, I see nothing that would keep me from approving this. It all seems to be appropriate, and it is similar to already allowed uses, and it seems to fit nicely.
Great. Thanks for adding that. Anything else? I concur with everything, and I appreciate David, you throwing that in there about the requirements of the ordinance, and look forward to seeing continued growth and redevelopment on this stretch of West Edge. So with that, seeing nothing else, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, you may. Burgess. Okay,
That's a yes.
yes. Chambers,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Milliken,
Yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Swan,
Yes.
Vyas.
Yes.
The motion is passed.
Excellent. Well, good luck, and we look forward to seeing this progress.
Thank you all so, so much. I can't wait to go tell my board.
Great. Thank you. All right. So next item, PC 2021.12, 333 East Alcott Avenue, request to rezone 6.6 acres of a parcel from manufacturing limited, the M1 district, to residential multi-dwelling, RM24. Pete, you want to take it away?
I sure will. I'm going to throw up the PowerPoint right now. All right. Now this is, some of you may remember that there was a request for a housing project in 2018 that dealt with this corner of this site. It was a slightly smaller area. What I want to start with here, since we're looking at the aerial view, this site, and there was a lot of history in the staff report about the paper industry occupying this stretch of Portage Creek for basically the last century. And then the extensive cleanup that had to occur. And now the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has been working to market this area between the railroad tracks in Belford, from Reed down to Alcott, as an office and healthcare park, essentially, trying to bring new businesses in, bring in services that the Edison neighborhood could use and definitely needed. And so it started down here, I'll just point to it, south of Bryant Street with the Family Health Center. And then over here, the former Illinois Envelope Company building is occupied by the Kalamazoo County Health Department. And then this site right here that shows as vacant is currently now occupied by a rather large office building that is the offices for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So there's been a lot of really good, thoughtful development that's occurred here. What you can also see is there's a trail, just a gravel trailway that's going to be relocated, but the plan is to also have a little trail system that runs through here. So now that I've kind of laid the foundation for that, tonight we have the Hollander Development Corporation that is seeking this rezoning to RM24 residential multifamily to allow for a development of 48 apartments on this property. And the site that's highlighted here is 6.64 acres, of the former paper mill property that that we need to discuss and see if this transitional use makes sense in this corner of the site. That being said, let's take a look at it here. So it's not much to look at. It's obviously it's been cleared and a lot of structure removal, soil remediation has occurred. It's now just sitting vacant and overgrown. But this is the corner where the apartment buildings would be located. Across the streets, this is the east side of Belford Street. This is single family zoned as well as RM15, which is residential multi-dwelling. So as you get further south towards Bryant Street, the zoning changes. But anyways, it's residential in nature and it's predominantly single family across the street here. And then the same on the north side of Reed, north of this corner we're talking about, that is predominantly single family. Looking at the zoning map more specifically, you can then get a better feel. Now, obviously, the reason this is all showing as industrial or manufacturing zone is because of the prior use of the site. It has drastically changed, and at some point, this area will get rezoned, based on the uses that have now located there. And this is one good step, what we're looking at tonight, because clearly the manufacturing zoning no longer fits the direction of development for this brownfield property. So looking at the future land use layout, you can see this falls under the neighborhood edge category. And I think that's a fitting category, given the fact that we are looking at a chunk of this site that would be located between the lesser intense residential uses to the east and the north and the more intensive office and healthcare uses to the south. So it's a very fitting one. Again, as far as the types of apartments that are going in, I should be more specific. There's 48 apartments proposed, and Mr. Hollander, Matt Hollander, is with us tonight, and he'll talk about this in more detail, but there are 12 permanent supportive housing units proposed for individuals recovering from substance abuse disorders, and then 36 units of affordable workforce housing, essentially. So, it's a well-needed project, and I think it's well placed here as well. As far as the strategic vision, goals, environmental responsibility, obviously this is a wonderful reuse of a portion of the brownfield site here. Complete neighborhoods, we're talking about adding residential units and at a scale that is not so far out of character. So for example, if you look at this map, this brown shade down here, this is RM15. So you're typically in that range of roughly 15 dwelling units per acre. And then we are looking at RM24. So a slightly higher density as far as number of residential units, but not that far out of range with the RM15 that is on the west and to the southeast. So as far as the master plan alignment, again, we are adding needed housing units. This also aligns with the Edison neighborhood plan as far as providing additional housing. On the engagement front, we sent out notices July 23rd to all the surrounding property owners, and the Holland Development Corporation also sent out letters to residents. They met with the Edison Neighborhood Association. In fact, there was a letter provided from the Edison Neighborhood Association in support of this project. And which I also want to note that, in 2018, I included the meeting minutes just so you could see what occurred in 2018 and be able to read the comments. And I guess the biggest difference was the number of supportive housing units, where that was to be all supportive housing units. This is now a mix with just 12 supportive housing units and 36, regular units. So, that's, so as you think back to what those meeting minutes showed from 2018, that's part of the reason for a lot of the comments you read in there and some of the concerns that were raised, that it really wasn't, that project may not have been the best balance for the neighborhood. And now the developer is back with a different version, which I think is great. But again, we're focusing on whether this is a viable site to be rezoned to this residential designation. So, under staff recommendation here and rationale, I mentioned the connection with the strategic vision, the 2025 master plan, the Edison neighborhood plan goals, the fact that this is a site the city has worked really hard to clean up, along with working with the state for over 10 years to demolish buildings, so that we could get to this point of putting it back into active use. This is definitely a community need to add additional housing. It's a good transitional use between the lower intensity residential and the more intensive commercial uses to the south and west on this site. And, it will be a good thing for the area. And again, the services that have already been brought to this site for the Edison neighborhood folks will, also be able to play a role with these, the folks that occupy these new apartments going in. So with that, the recommendation from the staff is for the Planning Commission to recommend approval of the rezoning to RM24 to the City Commission. And with that, I will stop the screen share and see if there's any questions for staff before we introduce Mr. Hollander.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this moment? Yes, Ms. Bias.
Pete, my question is mostly about stormwater management and generally flood management, as this is an area of the city that is particularly prone to heavy flooding during even minor rainstorms. Can you speak to that at all, and what a new development might add or subtract from what we're currently seeing? And, if we're anticipating more flooding issues in the future, what will a development like this do? Or a rezoning with anticipated development?
Well, that's a good question. And with all new development right now, the development itself is responsible for maintaining storage of its own stormwater. So, it shouldn't be adding to the water runoff. They will need to come up with some sort of stormwater management system, to handle the runoff from the buildings and the parking lots and retain it, whether that's underground or if that's surface retention ponds. Now, because of the soil contamination in this area, I'm not sure how that will work. Maybe when Mr. Hollander speaks, he can address some of the complexities of, because I'm sure it's been discussed, but but in general, that the city looks closely at any new development to make sure that it's not adding to our stormwater runoff and exacerbating the flooding issues that we've experienced.
Thanks. Any other clarifying questions from staff at this moment? Yeah, Mr. Harrison.
I just wanted to check in to see what community engagement notifications have been put in the second time around this project has come up. I know that was some done the first time. I just wanted to hear what was done the second time, just to kind of notify the community about the changes of this particular project in the community.
And that I'll leave for Mr. Hollander to address. I mean, staff did the normal noticing, 15 days prior to the meeting, had the notice in the Gazette. Mr. Hollander's been working with the Edison Neighborhood Association, so I don't know what additional outreach was done there, or with the association or with the neighborhood. So I'll let him speak to that more specifically.
What other questions do we have for staff at this moment? Pete, one question from me. Can you, just for the record and for everyone's clarity, there's a lot of R districts out there. Can you tell us a little bit more, what is RM24 and why is that the appropriate choice for this request?
Well, it's the appropriate choice based on the density of units. So you have, if we get into the multi-dwelling zone districts, it starts essentially with RM15, then RM24, then RM36. So we have low density multifamily, medium density multifamily, and high density. And this is not an area that really fits that high density category where you'd want like a high-rise apartment building, for example. So that's where the RM24 comes in. And at a later date, depending on market conditions and so forth. I mean, I don't know if this is 6.6 acres, so there's parts of it where you can't build on it. But I don't know if it would leave some wiggle room for potentially more units in the future. But yeah, it's definitely an area that's not, that wouldn't be appropriate for the high density category.
So the 24 is 24 units to the acre. Is that what the 24 corresponds to?
Yeah, it's approximately 24 units to the acre. We did some tweaking of the lot area standards a few years ago, so it's not, when those categories were originally created, it was spot on that it was 15 units per acre, 24 and 36, and now it's slightly more than that, but still in that it's still in the 20s though.
So it's more, like you said, it's more that low, medium, high, and it's the standards like height and lot area and setbacks and impervious coverage that varies by each gradient as you go, that sort of thing.
Yes.
If I'm putting words in your mouth. Okay.
You're right.
Right.
The height standards would change as well. So, but yeah, if you look at the low, medium, and high multi-dwelling categories, that's really the three we were working from to figure out what was most appropriate for this development in this particular area of the Edison neighborhood.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Not? Mr. Hollander, welcome. And if you'd like to share with us a little bit about your proposal, love to hear it.
Good evening, everyone. I had a little bit of a technical glitch with my video before the session. And so if I'm able to, I'm going to throw up some slides here and turn my video off. But leave my audio on as I go through those, if that's acceptable, and then turn my video back on at the end of that. My name is Matt Hollander. I'm the president of Hollander Development Corporation. We're officed in Portage, but our whole team lives in Kalamazoo, and functionally, since last March, we've been officed in Kalamazoo in our homes. We are a multifamily developer working throughout the state of Michigan. And we've been developing affordable housing since 1979. So let's see, it doesn't look like I can screen share. That's okay.
I can have them turn that on for you.
Okay.
Can our IT staff provide Mr. Hollander the screen share feature, please?
So we're a developer that specializes in multifamily, new construction, rehab, historic renovations. We do a lot of green construction. Our most recent project that we finished is the Creamery, which is also in the Edison neighborhood. So we have a presence in Edison currently. And we have another project currently under construction in Manistee, Michigan, which is on a former school site called Hillcrest Village, which is a 45-unit workforce housing project. And I only bring that up to give you an indication of the types of work that we do. And it looks like I can share now. So I'm going to burn through the first couple slides. Stop my video. Talk through that. This is the Creamery. This is Hillcrest Village. The site that we're discussing today is a site that we've been involved with since 2018. We did bring this to Planning Commission a previous time. We were approved at that meeting in 2018, but the project ultimately didn't move forward, in large part due to community opposition. And I'll get into some detail about that in a little bit. But Mr. Eldridge gave a good overview of the site boundaries. So, you're looking at them again in terms of survey and an aerial. I'm not going to dwell too much on this portion because we've already gone through it. Current zoning, this is a map that we already saw during this meeting, but this gives a broader view of the neighborhood from what was shared previously, and shows some of the RM15. There's some RM36 up in the top left corner of this map. This is a conceptual site plan for the project that we're proposing. This is very conceptual, but what this shows is a 48-unit apartment complex consisting of 4 buildings, each of which is 12 units, and all 2- and 3-bedroom units. So Kalamazoo generally has a huge need for new affordable housing units, and there's a greater need than the general need for 2- and 3- and larger sized bedroom units for families. We have a lot of 1- and 2-bedroom units which have come online within the city of Kalamazoo in the past 3 years, but it's much less in terms of the 2-, 3-, 4-bedroom larger units for families. What you can see on this site plan is the buildings are oriented to the east of the walking path, which currently exists on the site. And everything to the west of the walking path down to the Portage Creek and up the other side of the Portage Creek is a restrictive covenant area. It's like a conservation easement. And as I understand it, nobody's allowed to build anything there in perpetuity. So one of the reasons that we have requested RM24 rather than RM15, even though the number of units that we're proposing right now would fit with RM15, is we still don't understand the full context of what limitations will be placed on our site plan to meet the requirements of that restrictive covenant area. So in 2018, we looked at a 50-unit project on 2.6 acres. We're looking at a larger subparcel of 6.64 acres now. Part of the reason for that is we want to make sure that we have adequate room for green space and stormwater management. These are just some examples that I pulled off the web. These are not our designs, but these are 3-story, 12-unit buildings. And so the 4 buildings that we're proposing right now are going to mass similar to these. And so it is a moderate sized massing. These are all walk-ups, which is also what we're proposing, and pretty common apartment building format. When I say affordable housing, I'm talking about units that would be rented, rent and income restricted to 60% of area median income, according to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So our 2-bedroom units right now, if we're using the 2021 numbers, would rent for $1,045 a month, including the cost of utilities. So if residents pay their own utilities, we would reduce the rent so that their total cost of housing was less than that $1,045. And 3-bedroom units would rent for just over $1,200 a month with utilities factored into that. And the income restrictions for units like that are a maximum of $32,520 to $61,320 a year. And the big range from 32 to 61 is household size. So 32,520 would be a single individual household. 61,320 is a household of 8 or more people. So that's the reason there's such a big range there. We originally, in 2018, were looking to replicate a project called Andy's Place, which is located in Jackson and is now open and leased up. Andy's Place is a pilot project of the Michigan State Housing Development Authority under a program they call Recovery Housing. And it's this project is exclusively for individuals and families with heads of households who are in recovery from substance use disorders. And this initiative was started as a step towards combating the opioid epidemic. And it's more important now than it was in 2018 that we do something to combat the opioid epidemic and substance use disorders in general. We've seen a 30% increase nationally in overdose deaths over 2020 from 2019. And 2019 was already one of the highest years on record in terms of how many people in the United States were dying from drug overdoses. And that 30% increase puts 2020 at the highest rate that we've ever seen in the United States since we started tracking. So Andy's Place is entirely permanent supportive housing. There are facilities on site for people to meet with recovery coaches, have group therapy sessions, AANA meetings, lots of non-clinical sort of wraparound services for the supportive housing. And then there are several organizations in the Jackson area that come to this development or residents go to their facilities for more medically oriented treatments. So our plan on this project is we have Family Health Center is just south of the project site. The site plan that I showed earlier shows the recovery housing on the south portion of the site where I think you can see my cursor. And the reason for locating it there is so that people have easy access to the Family Health Center. The Integrated Services Kalamazoo Administrative Building is right here on the corner of Alcott and Portage. Integrated Services is prepped to be our service partner on the recovery housing portion of this. And the 12 units here would be for mostly for women with children. That's how the program demographics shake out. We have another site, which is unrelated to this rezoning request, where we are developing 24 additional units of recovery housing. So back in 2018, we were attempting to do 50 units of recovery housing on a smaller portion of this site. We got a lot of pushback from the neighborhood, including from the neighborhood association about the concentration of supportive housing units. And we've since gone back to the drawing board, come up with this new mixed concept where we have only a quarter of the units on a smaller project are recovery housing. And that's a major reason why the neighborhood association has gotten on board and provided support for the project. Other factors for selecting this site, Mr. Eldridge went through a couple of them. We have Kalamazoo Health and Community Services building across the Portage Creek. There's the brand new State of Michigan Department of Health building just due south. Goodwill Industries, HRI, other services are in this area. And in the transition area here, we think that this is a good location for regular workforce housing. I mentioned earlier there's a restrictive covenant area on the site, so you can loosely see the site boundaries in this top right part of this image. This whole striped area is an area that can't be developed into the future. And The reason for that, as I understand it, is the whole section of the Portage Creek on this site was rebuilt as part of the cleanup of the site. And it is now, if you look at a flood map of this site, the flood zone is restricted to the creek itself. And there's a big cut. So that portion of the creek is substantially below grade where we're talking about developing the apartments. So there's a big volume of space that will remain there in perpetuity to try and make sure that the Portage Creek doesn't overflow its banks. So in terms of the stormwater management issues that Commissioner Vyas asked about, that's one aspect of it, is the stormwater surges that could come from the Portage Creek itself. Another aspect of us, going to this larger 6.64 acre parcel instead of the 2.6 acre parcel is so that we have adequate room on the site for green space, including stormwater retention, whether that's surface retention ponds or underground storage tanks. We haven't gotten to the level of civil engineering that'll tell us what we need to do there, but we do plan to have adequate stormwater retention on the site. Another aspect of why we broadened the boundaries of the site that we're hoping to develop here is this northern portion. You can see the site boundaries again. So you have the creek flowing down the middle of this map, and Bryant Street is down towards the bottom. This red circle in the northeast corner of the site has some buried coal ash, which is a hazardous material. And so that was stockpiled and buried as part of the overall cleanup of the site. Originally, the parcel that we were looking at would terminate right around, I believe this is Lay Street, to the south of where this coal ash is, because we didn't want to get into it and disturb it and have to deal with the cost of getting it out of there as part of this project. We've subsequently changed our mind about that. We want to remove this as part of the project and sort of deal with the problem once and for all. We started to think more in terms of what might happen in the future if we build a project on the southern portion of this part of the site, and then another party comes in the future and redevelops this northeast corner and starts to stir up dust with heavy equipment. What's going to happen to our residents? What sort of issues are we going to have to deal with in terms of air quality at that point? And so we've sort of taken responsibility for that at this point, and cleanup of that coal ash is now part of the scope of this project. In terms of timeline, we are going to be in pre-development for several more months. Our goal is to submit a low-income housing tax credit application to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority on April 1st of 22, which would sit with them until mid to late July of 22. And if we're successful in getting those competitive tax credits, we would spend most of the fall of 22 finishing design work and permitting, and then hopefully by the end of the year or January of 23, close on our financing, get under construction. And if we can stick to that timeline, we would be able to open the project in summer of 24. And that's all the slides that I had. I wanted to respond before we do any Q&A about community engagement. So Commissioner Harrison asked about community engagement. We sent letters to households within 300 feet of the project boundary on the same day the city did, on July 23rd. And we included a sort of description of everything that I just went through in the presentation in that letter, and invited people to 2 neighborhood input sessions. So we held one on the 31st and another on the 2nd, if I remember the dates correctly. Both of those were Zoom meetings, and the Zoom meeting information was included in the letters that we sent out, and we did not have participation in those. So we were surprised at that, because we had a community meeting in connection with the 2018 rezoning request, and we had a lot of participation there. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's that people are satisfied with the changes that we made, or if it was, not the right way to connect with them. But that's what we did. We did consider going door to door, which we did in 2018, but due to concerns about COVID, we didn't want to do that. So the community engagement was the letters from the city, the letters from us, these 2 neighborhood input sessions, and we had a total of 3 meetings with the neighborhood association. A neighborhood association was provided with a copy of the letter that we sent to the residents to distribute freely for those neighborhood input sessions. But again, we didn't get participation there.
Excellent. Thanks for answering that. Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Yeah, Mr. Harrison.
Just a quick question about the timeline. You said if you are successful for the application for the tax credit, I just wanted to know what it would look like if you didn't get, the approval that you were looking for. The process didn't kind of follow the timeline that you're looking for.
So the low-income housing tax credit program is highly competitive. Only about 25% of applicants are successful. And we generally do better than that, but we don't get all of them that we apply for. So if we swing and miss on April 1st, we would plan to reapply on October 1st, which is the next funding deadline, 6 months later. And generally, if we're unsuccessful 2 times in a row, that would cause us to abandon the project. So if we're not successful on April 1st, it's a 6-month delay.
Yeah, sure. Day.
I have a question, going back to the community, the community connections and like connecting with them, and going back to the last time you guys had the meeting, there were some members that lived in a neighborhood that was concerned about like safety, drug issues, because whenever you have any type of programs like this, drugs will come, because people have a hard time sometimes being clean. And then in this neighborhood is a very rougher neighborhood, and there are drugs there are guns there, and there are different obstacles that create challenges, and trying to figure out how you will make it safe for the residents that are there, because I'm pretty sure that some of those residents from 2018 probably have the same issues, because that environment in that neighborhood has not changed. And then now we have homeless encampments and a lot of other things. So I'm just trying to figure out like what's the goal, or what you guys plan for like safety if this whole project were to come to pass.
So there are I think a couple questions in there. One is about security at the site. We do intend to have 24-hour security at the recovery housing building, both to protect the residents in the building and also monitor, what's coming in and out of that building. I can tell you that in all the conversations that I've had with treatment professionals, they've uniformly told me, and this is coming from people who run the programs that we're involved with. It doesn't matter if we stick people in a cornfield outside of town or if we stick them right downtown. The recovery process for these individuals is something that they are going through themselves. It's an individual journey, and they're going to succeed or fail because of the choices that they make and not because of the influences around them. That said, we do know that this is a rough part of the neighborhood. We're aware of that. And, nobody knows what's going to happen. What we know is that the treatment professionals are telling us that it doesn't matter where we put it. They're supportive of where we want to put it because of the connectivity to the resources that are right next door. We know that Andy's Place has been open for several months now, I think maybe a year, and they haven't had one police call since they've been open. So this is a partnership between the drug treatment court, the men's and women's drug treatment courts, the family court, behavioral court, the problem-solving courts, the 9th and 10th Circuit, and us as a private developer. And the individuals who will be referred to live in the recovery housing have already gone through the initial, difficulties of getting off of whatever substances they're having problems with. So these are folks who have already gone through a long period of recovery and very intensive therapy and drug testing and weekly or biweekly meetings with people that are overseeing their recovery process. So we're getting the people that have already succeeded to a certain extent, and recovery is messy and some people relapse, and we know that that's going to happen, but we will have systems in place to make sure that if somebody has a minor relapse and that's a bump in the road to their recovery, that's something that we deal with. That's just something that we have to acknowledge, help them move on. If we have people who give up and they're not interested in living in a sober community, then they won't live there anymore. And we'll have to navigate those issues as they come up. But I can tell you there have not been any police calls at Andy's place. Security has been tight. It has not been a major concern. They've done a lot of work towards that. And we've been working with the same security team that they work with to sort of design our processes and procedures. But that's the best answer I can give.
And then I'm sorry, I had one more question to go to that. Now, is Andy's house set in the same neighborhood as that neighborhood? Are they comparable when it comes to like gang violence, all those types of areas like that? Are they comparable as far as that side?
I don't know what the comparison would be in terms of crime statistics between the site of Andy's place and this site.
Gotcha. And then also you were saying there are going to be other housing where like families and things could say separate from the sober. Now, how are those two going to be kind of treated differently? Because if some people are paying like full rent and things like that, how are you guys how's the process to let them know like who they're going to be staying next to, like what the process for that other housing is?
So these are all family units. So like I said, these are all 2 and 3 bedroom units, and the recovery housing, the 12 units of recovery housing are intended for families. So this is intended to be a family development. And again, I mean, these are people who are in recovery. These are not people who are actively, in the throes of addiction. And so we won't be treating them any differently. We'll be providing additional supports to the people in those 12 units. And, people moving into the other apartments will be aware of the fact that 12 of the 48 units are recovery housing. But we don't have any intention of treating them differently.
Good. What other questions do we have for the applicant at this time?
Chair Milliken, I have one question. Commissioner Vyas had asked about stormwater management, and Matt, I haven't been part of any of the meetings with Brownfield and what the complexities are with the soil contamination out there. Is there any pieces of the stormwater management you can share with the commissioners as far as how that's going to be handled?
We did work with BRA in 2018, as well as a civil engineer. And we actually, I think we even got through site plan approval at that point with full stormwater management. I don't think the rules have changed significantly from then. But there was, based on the fill that they put into the site and based on the environmental reports that we have, there doesn't seem to be a significant engineering challenge, technical challenge to stormwater retention. So I'm not sure what specifically you're asking, but we have not encountered anything in our due diligence so far that would lead us to believe that we need to come up with some sort of engineered system that's substantially different than you would see on any similar sized site with similar use.
So if I can just chime in, one of the reasons I was asking is because this parcel is covered by our natural features protection overlay. And so that will affect, I mean, that's different from the zone allowances that you would have seen in 2018. And we've had more significant flooding in this region since just the past 3 years. So that was the reason for my question.
Yep, and just to clarify what that means, because of the natural features protection overlay, that means that's an additional step when this goes through site plan review. There's an NFP review that occurs also. And Matt, just to be more specific on my end, I can't recall if it was below grade water detention, in the parking lot, or if there was surface ponds. That's what I was trying to remember is, the layout of how that stormwater was, where it was going to be on the site, and if it was going to be surface retention or if they actually could be put underground.
We did have surface retention on the site plan in 2018.
Okay.
But, to me, these sound like site plan considerations. And just in terms of technical expertise, the Creamery is another brownfield development, very tight site, 48 units in a 60,000 square foot mixed use building on a 1.3 acre site. We're on track to achieve LEED Platinum on that site, on that building, in part because of innovative stormwater management that we incorporated into the building design. So, Hollander Development is fully supportive of the natural features overlay, has been, and we're excited to figure out the best way to do that portion of the project.
Is it your goal then for this project to also be LEED certified?
This project, the goal is either LEED or Enterprise Green Communities, which is a similar green building certification program. And everything that we do is third party certified to either LEED or Enterprise Green Communities. And a portion of the project may or may not be certified under Passive House Institute US, which is a more difficult certification to achieve than either Enterprise or LEED. But the Creamery, for example, is on track for LEED Platinum. LEED Platinum multifamily project in Kalamazoo.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Yeah.
I just have one more question. So you said that the neighborhood associations were on board. If this project moves forward, or as you move forward with the project, knowing that there wasn't too many people that was engaged to those personal meetings, does your organization plan on doing any kind of outreach or kind of intentional connection with those communities as you move forward with the project? And if so, what would that look like?
The answer is yes. We are committed to doing additional neighborhood outreach. Again, going back to the Creamery, we had Bison Associates was the architect and engineer on that project. They conducted a series of neighborhood charrettes that informed the design of the site plan and the building for that project in advance of when we started conceptual design. We do intend to do something similar on this project and host a neighborhood charrette with the neighborhood association as well as neighbors.
I just say I'm glad to hear that, because the changes in the plan since 2018 have obviously addressed a lot of the concerns from then. But the idea that you've gotten no feedback from a lot of your attempts to get engagement sounds like more of a COVID-related lack of connection. So I'm glad to hear you're planning to do some more outreach.
Any other questions? Good. Seeing none, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. I will remind everyone that we did receive some correspondence in our packets, including a letter from the Neighborhood Association regarding this. And yeah, so we had one in our packet and then one in the email. Are there any voicemails related to this item?
Yes, there's one voicemail, and I'll cue that up for you and play it momentarily.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Christina Allen. I live at 447 Reed Street. I'm calling about the rezoning request made to go from manufacturing limited to residential multi-dwelling. My concerns are that the area right now in question reaches from Bryant Street to Reed Street, which borders the front of my property along Belford Street. Right now, that is a green area. The river or creek or whatever you want to call it runs through part of that property. My concern is that if they put up a 3-story apartment complex right there, all of that is going to run down into the river, which is going to make it much more polluted than it already is. Another concern that I have is that where this wants to be placed, which is along Belford Street, it is family residential housing there. It is along a school bus route. There are 3 stops on Belford alone for these children. To put it in a complex there would just make it much more congested and actually much more dangerous for the kids that stand there on Belford every morning. Another concern I have is that they're talking about doing a rehab treatment or rehab housing there. That is approximately 3 blocks away from Washington Writers Academy. I work for area-wide transport, taking people to and from the methadone clinic. It's called Vickers Clinic on Howard Street. And I can tell you from personal experience, from listening to these people, and from their own admittal, that this is not something that we want in the middle of a residential neighborhood, especially that close to where children are walking to and from school, waiting for a bus, and so on and so forth. It's not a good situation. It sounds nice, but they would be the first people to tell you that it is a dangerous situation putting that there. My other comment is there is property on Stockbridge that used to be where the former Department of Human Services used to be. What I don't understand is why the apartment complex can't be put on that property. It's a huge parcel of property that is vacant. It's right across from Dollar General, and it is on a major bus line for Metro Transit that comes down around Belford Street. We are concerned about this green space. We don't think Kalamazoo needs to continue to develop just for the sake of development. Thank you.
Okay, that is the end of public comment.
All right. With that, then I will close the public hearing. Are there any clarifying questions of staff or the applicant? Yes, Saki.
So this is maybe just more of a technical question for Pete, I think. Can you clarify if the M1 zone has more intense or at least a different water or flood management requirement than an RM district? I don't know that off the top of my head, and I wonder if you can explain what the differences might be.
Well, from the standpoint of development, the M1 would allow more impervious cover, so more, footprint of buildings and asphalt than a residential zone district. So, so yes, it is moving us in the right direction, looking at a multi-dwelling zone district from that standpoint.
Okay, thanks.
Any other clarifying questions at this time? Now we'll be looking for a motion. I'll remind us that this is a rezoning request. We've had a lot of conversation about the proposed use, which is helpful and can be beneficial, but I don't want it to create confusion. The request before us is the rezoning of the parcel. And with that rezoning, it can be, we are to consider all of the potential uses in the RM24 and not necessarily what has been proposed. That is just a potential idea and not what is on the table for our consideration this evening. What's on the table for our consideration is the rezoning from M1 to RM24. And so I'll be seeking a motion to recommend approval to the City Commission for the rezoning of 6.6 acres of a parcel at 333 East Alcott Avenue from the M1 Manufacturing Limited District to the Residential Multi-Dwelling RM24 District. Who would like to make that motion?
I will make a motion that we pass on our recommendation for approval for this rezoning to the City Commission.
A motion by Burgess. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Swan.
Second by Swan. Thank you. All right. Someone like to start discussion? Burgess?
I just want to start out kind of moving from what Greg just said, that what we're talking about, what Mr. Hollander is discussing is only one possible specific use of the general rezoning that we're talking about. We have a brownfield site that is ready to be brought back into use. That is a wonderful thing to start with. That it would be brought back to use with housing and is even better. And the appropriateness of a more denser type of housing as a transition from the medical care facilities nearby to the single family beyond is appropriate in all sorts of ways. And we've seen the staff report for other reasons. I just think if we keep thinking in general that this is a move in the right direction, it's appropriate to our master plan and is a real exciting development toward adding something that is very, very much needed and very vital to the community in terms of more affordable housing.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, Zach.
Yeah, I'll echo Dave's comments and just add that, you know, I'm nervous about adding large structures to parts of our city that are struggling with flood management. And I'm heartened that there is an additional process of approval with the Natural Features Protection Board. So I'm hopeful that whatever does end up springing up in this hopefully rezoned parcel, it will serve its neighbors really well, serve our community really well, and also adhere to the protections that we have assigned to the natural features there.
Great. Other comments and discussion? Yes, Michael.
No, I just wanted to, just share my thanks for Matt reaching out to the community and being persistent with the project. Not only as you come back to the board just for approval, but also keeping the community engaged with how you plan on developing the project or the ideas you have. I think it's a great opportunity to redeveloping that particular portion of the community based off of the community's input. And the letters that we received in our packet said that they supported the development or the redevelopment of their property. And I think that it would be in our best interest to support them in that endeavor.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? I'll add, for those of you that weren't on the commission in 2018, I think it was, this was one of the more challenging items in review at that time. And it was challenging because there was a lot of comments and there were a lot of folks came in support, mostly folks who would be potential users or maybe in their past lives would have been users of the facility. And then you had a lot of neighbors coming out against this, a lot of neighbors coming out against this proposed development. And and so it was really hard. And of course, they're coming out about a specific use, and we're talking about a rezoning. So we had that dichotomy going on that we talked about earlier. And ultimately, I think that's why it moved on, because we were focused on the rezoning and not necessarily the use. And so I think, Dave's comments about the pandemic and maybe impacting some of the input, I think there's some merit to that, but I think the efforts that have been made to reach out, I think the letter from the neighborhood association and the vote that the neighborhood association took to approve or support this project, and the fact that there was only one phone call with some concerns about it, shows a change in opinion on this, and it shows the efforts that the applicant and the development company have made to address those concerns. And so I thank you and I commend you on those changes. And again, I realize this is more site plan related than rezoning related, but it gives me a lot more confidence moving forward with the rezoning in this case. So just a little history lesson for those of you that weren't here before. And of course, as always, this is consistent with the master plan. It's consistent with the standards in the zoning ordinance, and it's consistent with the neighborhood plan. So it hits all the buttons. Any other comments or discussion? If not, Pete, can we have a roll call vote?
We'll start with Vyas,
Yes.
Swan,
Yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Milliken,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Chambers,
No.
Burgess,
Yes.
the recommendation passes.
This will go on to the city commission. Thanks again for your efforts. Best of luck, Matt.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Okay, moving on. No more discussion on city planner report. Oh, you're muted, Pete. Sorry. I want to hear you.
Still muted.
Oh, still muted.
Fix that. Okay, here we go. So this is still the city planner's report. She just unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but the first item, all of you were on one of the email strings about the Westnedge and Park Street public feedback sessions that are going on right now to engage the community, looking at traffic calming techniques that could be deployed, looking at pedestrian crossings that could be upgraded, and a variety of other, bicycle lanes in certain areas. There are 3 more in-person events coming up. We've got Galilee Baptist Church on August 10th. We've got a gathering at the Walnut and Park Cafe on August 12th. And then there's another lunchtime live event coming up this Friday. So there's many opportunities, plus it's on the Imagine Kalamazoo website, so you can pull up the information there. You can provide comment via the website if you can't make one of the live events. In addition to that, we are working on a sign ordinance update. So there's a draft available for public viewing on Imagine Kalamazoo as well. And city staff has done an outreach effort, first go round, so to speak, with businesses in the community and neighborhood associations. And we're now working on a second outreach effort in the next couple of weeks, and which will include a presentation about the changes to the sign regulations. And this would be presented to the board, most likely in September, or October. So we're moving that forward, and we'll keep the planning commissioners apprised of that. And it's not like a wholesale change of the whole sign ordinance, because that gets really complicated for those of us administering it. But we definitely needed to make some, some updates and keep it legal based on the, precedent across the country related to, free speech and sign related matters. And that's why we have Clyde with us to keep us on track. So he has been an instrumental part of revamping the sign ordinance and coming up with this draft. Other things, just a reminder, Natural Features Protection Phase 2 is going to be in front of the City Commission this coming Monday for the public hearing. That'd be August 16th. And they will then vote on that proposal. So that is moving forward at this point. And other than that, I already commented on where we're at as far as virtual meetings. So that is the gist of the assistant city planner report.
Great. Any questions for Pete? Thank you, Pete. Do we have, let's take us through all of those items. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
No public comments at this time.
City commissioners, we have two with us tonight. Jack or Chris, would either of you like to share any comments with us?
Yes, I would. I'm just glad to note that the chair of the Planning Commission is making a distinction between rezoning requests and site plan reviews. What the issue before you all tonight has to do with the land, the stormwater effects and flooding and so forth. And the use part will be part of a later discussion. Frankly, I'm very pleased that Mr. Hollander didn't lose total interest in this project, because he's doing what he can to fill a real need in the community. And he scaled his project back, taking into account the feeling as a neighborhood, so that hopefully they'll be a little bit more willing to take a chance on this project. So I just commend you all for and the applicant for doing what you're doing, actually, for both of those rezoning requests. So carry on. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Pradel, Chris. Did you have anything for us, Chris?
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully my internet is coming through okay. It's been a little bit spotty here tonight. But just wanted to provide an update since the last time the commission met. We had Tuesday.
Give it just a minute. Oh, we lost him. Well, we'll go around and take planning commissioner comments, and if we get him back, we'll give him another shot here. Planning commissioner comments. Any planning commissioner comments this evening? Maybe I'll go around the horn just to give Chris a minute. Mariah, anything for the good of the order? No? Michael, I saw your hand go up, so you get next.
I just had a general kind of concern or just kind of question or idea that popped in my head through our conversations today. Just as we continue with our discussions and planning, the community engagement process that has kind of been hijacked due to COVID, and just, kind of put a string on the typical way that the city or projects are communicated to the residents in the community or shared with, whoever is interested or the stakeholders, that we just might need to consider a different approach, or maybe an updated approach that takes in consideration today's circumstances, to make sure that we can have a complete community outreach and interaction, to make sure that as we make decisions on the planning commission, they are in step with what the community desires and want. And I think that's possible through further discussion and adjustment as we just kind of adjust to this new kind of circumstance. So I just want to kind of put that out there. That's something that's just kind of been percolating for me through our conversation, that, we need to kind of further consider about what we can do on our end to make sure that we connect it to.
Thank you for sharing that. David, any comments tonight?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay, sure. Sade, I think I saw your hand come up.
So I was just gonna give a reminder to those who have been paying attention. Tomorrow night, our city commissioners are going to be going over the OIR report about our public safety when it came to the matters of the Proud Boys and also the Black Lives Matters march. So if any of you that, as we all live in the city, interest and just to support our commissioners, because that is going to be a very tough conversation. It will be through Zoom. You can also call in, and the report is online for you guys to read, but just to keep them in mind and just to go in, and show your support for the city, and just to speak as a community member, because this will be a huge topic, and there will be some things that we definitely as the community need to hold accountable as far as our commissioners and as far as our public safety. And this is definitely a conversation that we all need to be a part of tomorrow night, if you guys can.
Great, thank you for sharing. Saki? Nope. And Jennifer?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, and let's say my thing. Chris, I see you're back. Anything, any updates for us that you were about to start on?
We'll give this a try again. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I was just going to provide an update since we met on July 1st. I believe that was the last time we met. On July 6th, based on your recommendation, we adopted the ordinance to rezone the Wall Street properties from commercial office to Live Work 1. So that was a unanimous vote. Thank you guys for your leadership on that and your guidance and recommendation. In that same meeting, we adopted an ordinance to rezone the north side rezoning from M1 to Live Work 1 and 2. So that was also a unanimous vote as well. So again, thank you for your guidance on that coming to commission. Also wanted to just take a minute to just mention that at our last meeting, it was agenda item K1. We adopted a resolution to continue electronic meetings through December 31st. I know there'll be some people who, share feedback one way or the other about whether that was the right decision to make. But I fully believe that was the right decision to make, because it gives us the flexibility and latitude if conditions change to make decisions on a dime if we need to. As you are well aware, the Delta variant is very rampant in our county and throughout the entire United States. We have schools starting back, college coming back in session here soon. So there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty at the moment. And so we just felt it was the safest course for the community, for city staff, and also just recognizing that for every person who feels, disenfranchised that they can't come and speak in person, there's also a person out there who won't come to a meeting because they don't feel safe. So, that's obviously a very difficult decision for all of us. But we felt pretty confident making that decision at the last meeting. So I just wanted to lift those up as well. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks for that update. And that's similar to what I was going to say. Just one reminder, our next meeting is before Labor Day. It's the Thursday before Labor Day due to a late Labor Day. So if you have extended weekend plans that's going to take you out of town on that Thursday before Labor Day, make sure staff knows, so that we can ensure we have quorum for that meeting. And then enjoy the rest of your summer, but enjoy it safely. Be diligent out there, wear your mask as needed, and get a shot if you haven't. All right, that's my soapbox. Our agenda is done. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Take care.